The immense, majestic sound reverberated across the vast heavens and earth, spanning millions of miles. It ascended to the 9 heavens and descended to the nether spring, traveling at the speed of light. This was because its medium of transmission was not material air but the void of space itself. On the nameless continent, an expanse approximately 2 million miles wide, all space, matter, and energy froze in an instant. Even the 4 major battle zones were immobilized. The terrifying shockwaves that had swept across the area were forcibly halted, though 2 of these battle zones were only confined for a few brief moments. Boom, boom. Amid the sound of shattering space, 4 figures broke free from the spatial imprisonment. They were, without question, the combatants within 2 of the battle zones. Wu Wanlong and Mu Hengtian in one, and Xia Tianqing and Zhuang Yuanzi in the other. As heavenly supremes, they possessed the strength necessary to shatter the confinement. However, He Yuanyun, Tongdan, Xiao Yin, and Yin Yao remained completely immobilized. This kind of power, who on earth could it be? Mu Hengtian's face was filled with shock as his gaze turned toward the distant horizon. The ability to dominate and imprison heaven and earth was undoubtedly a power belonging to a heavenly supreme. Yet to command and freeze an entire continent, housing 4 heavenly supremes, instantly was far beyond the capabilities of an ordinary supreme. Similarly, Wu Wanlong and the others stared toward the distant sky, wondering what kind of peerless, heaven-defying powerhouse could have descended to display such terrifying control over the heavens and earth. Buzz. As they focused on the distant horizon, a humming sound arose from nowhere. Then, in the sky, a figure appeared without anyone noticing, not even the 4 heavenly supremes. An aura of overwhelming control blanketed the heavens and earth, compelling everything within to bow in submission. Even Wu Wanlong and Mu Hengtian's expressions changed drastically under this oppressive force. This power was on an entirely different level, far exceeding their early-stage heavenly supreme status. It approached the late stage of heavenly supreme. Yet despite the figure seeming not far away, Wu Wanlong and the others could not discern their appearance. The ancient and vast aura emanating from them made it clear that this being was an existence that had endured for tens of thousands of years. A member of the primordial divine clan, a supreme expert of the ancient heaven-reaching Python lineage. That was the immediate thought of Wu Wanlong and the others. In the presence of this ancient entity, everyone on the nameless continent was a mere junior. Junior Wu Wanlong, from the lower dimension, serves as a Grand Elder of the Western Heaven Palace. Wu Wanlong was the first to kneel and bow deeply. Junior Xia Tianqing, current Palace Master of the Grand Myriad Heavenly Palace. I was unaware of the descent of a revered member of the Divine Clan and failed to offer a proper welcome. Xia Tianqing quickly followed suit, bowing alongside Wu Wanlong. Not far away, Mu Hengtian and Zhuang Yuanzi also knelt, paying their respects to the figure in the sky. Heh, the Western Heaven Palace? I once met the Water Source Palace Master. No need for such formalities. The half-illusory figure in the sky cast a calm glance at Wu Wanlong and chuckled. Then, their gaze shifted toward Xia Tianqing. The Grand Myriad Heavenly Palace? Is this the palace of Xiaolian? Xia Tianqing froze for a moment. As the current palace master, how could she not know the name Xiaolian? Over 10,000 years ago, Xiaolian was the palace master of the Grand Myriad Heavenly Palace. Under her leadership, the palace was even more prosperous than it was now. Furthermore, Xiaolian was the first palace master to dispatch powerful cultivators to assist the lower dimensions. Xia Tianqing was, in fact, a descendant of Xiaolian. Of course, Xia Tianqing was unaware that among the names inscribed on the Myriad Manifestation Stele was one of the experts Xiaolian had sent to the lower dimension. That name, though perhaps forgotten by the world, had paved the way for a mighty figure who, a decade later, would shake the Ice Spirit Clan to its core. This figure had overturned the Ice Spirit Clan for the sake of someone, a disciple of one of Xiaolian's dispatched experts. That dispatched expert bore the title Ancestral Talisman Master. Ancestor Xiaolian was indeed a former palace master of the Grand Myriad Heavenly Palace, Xia Tianqing replied. Rise. Palace Master Xiaolian, and I had some interactions in the past. How has she been?" The ethereal figure chuckled. "Our ancestor, transcended thousands of years ago," Xia Tunqing murmured softly. "Is that so?" The figure was momentarily stunned before laughing aloud. She left without even saying goodbye. The figure's laughter subsided as their gaze turned to Mu Hongtian and Zhuang Yuanzi. "And you too? My clan members are fighting here. I am the sect master of the ancient heaven and earth sect, Mu Hongtian," Mu Hongtian quickly declared. "I am Zhuang Yuanzi, the palace master of the Divine Void Palace," Zhuang Yuanzi added, glancing briefly at Mu Hongtian. "The ancient heaven and earth sect and the Divine Void Palace? These are indeed somewhat renowned factions," the ethereal figure remarked faintly as he observed Mu Hongtian and Zhuang Yuanzi before suddenly posing a question that left the two momentarily stunned. "Can either of you explain what has happened here?" "Well," Mu Hongtian and Zhuang Yuanzi were momentarily at a loss for words. Before they could respond, another voice resonated through the heavens. "Senior, Zhuang Yuanzi has dared to covet a trace of the primordial divine vein within the primordial divine clan, intending to seize it to establish the Divine Void Palace's dominance over the central heaven continent," Xia Tianqing declared sharply. "Oh." The ethereal figure raised an eyebrow upon hearing this and turned his aged gaze toward Mu Hongtian and Zhuang Yuanzi, his expression sharpening slightly. "Is this true?" This question caused Mu Hongtian, and especially Zhuang Yuanzi, to tremble involuntarily. "Senior, I believe it is unwise to take a single person's word as the truth. I suggest we release the fourth Holy Son and let him explain," Mu Hongtian proposed. Zhuang Yuanzi, hearing this, secretly felt a wave of relief. He understood Mu Hongtian's motive and realized the vast disparity in strength between himself and this formidable elder. The gap between levels within the Heavenly Supreme stage was even greater than that between Earth Supreme and Heavenly Supreme. Acting under Tong Dan's instructions, Zhuang Yuanzi seized the opportunity. "We are merely following the directives of the fourth Holy Son." "Very well," the ethereal figure replied after a moment of thought. Mu Hongtian and Zhuang Yuanzi were inwardly delighted, but Wu Wanlong and Xia Tianqing, watching from another side, were alarmed. If Tong Dan was released without freeing He Yuanyun, the situation would turn against them. However, before they could speak, the ethereal figure pointed a finger toward the battle zone containing Tong Dan and He Yuanyun. Ding! With a flick containing the force of controlling heaven and earth, the restrictive barrier around Tong Dan and He Yuanyun began to loosen. Yet the next scene caused Mu Hongtian and Zhuang Yuanzi's faces to change dramatically. From the distorted space, the person freed from the barrier was not Tong Dan but He Yuanyun. Millions of miles away, within a fearsome battle zone, He Yuanyun, now liberated, quickly assessed the situation. Noticing the immobilized Tong Dan suspended mid-air along with the colossal imitation primordial divine codex behind him, He Yuanyun's gaze turned toward the horizon where a semi-transparent figure stood. "The heaven and earth barrier," He Yuanyun muttered, realization dawning upon him. His gaze fixed on the distant horizon. A glimmer of joy appeared in his eyes as he recognized the arrival of a semi-transparent figure. "Grand Elder?" Seeing the Grand Elder's arrival, He Yuanyun felt overwhelming relief. Among the 12 holy sons of the ancient heaven-reaching Python clan, factions had formed. The Grand Elder was aligned with his side. The Elder's arrival was a tremendous boon for He Yuanyun, ensuring his safety. Sweeping his gaze millions of miles across the battlefield, He Yuanyun glanced at Xiao Yan's battle. Confirming Xiao Yan's safety, he propelled himself through the sky, crossing vast distances in mere moments to approach the Grand Elder of the ancient, heaven-reaching Python clan. For a mid-stage Earth Supreme, a journey of 1,000,000 miles took less than half a minute. Witnessing He Yuanyun's approach, Mu Hongtian and Zhuang Yuanzi's expression stiffened. However, facing the immense power of the ancient, heaven-reaching Python clan's Grand Elder, they dared not voice their objections. "Ah, Grand Elder, you've finally arrived," He Yuanyun greeted with a smile. To Mu Hongtian and others, the ethereal figure appeared indistinct, but to He Yuanyun, it was strikingly clear. It was a plain, unassuming old man with aged but spirited eyes. The old man returned He Yuanyun's gaze with a faint smile. You little rascal, sneaking out of the clan on your own. If not for sensing disturbances in your divine soul seal, I wouldn't have realized you were in trouble, Grand Elder. It was together with the Holy Sun. He Yuanyun immediately began explaining the earlier situation to the elder with a weathered face. But before he could fully disclose the truth, the elder waved his hand dismissively. I've already guessed as much. I will demand an explanation from Elder of Heavenly Punishment, the elder stated. The mentioned Elder of Heavenly Punishment was a seated elder within the ancient heaven-reaching Python clan, holding a status no less significant than the Grand Elder. However, this Elder of Heavenly Punishment supported the faction of Tongdan and his allies. As the elder spoke, his gaze turned toward another part of the sky. A voice carrying a weight that shook the hearts of everyone present resonated outward. That one over there. Shall I seek my explanation now, or shall we return to the clan for it? The elder's voice rippled across the space, causing the expressions of Wu Wanlong, Xia Tianqing, Mu Hengtian, and Zhuang Yuanzi to shift dramatically. Even He Yuanyun felt a tremor in his heart as he quickly turned his gaze toward the horizon where the elder's eyes were focused. There, hovering in midair, a black-robed figure had appeared at some point, standing silently. Although this figure's apparent age was not far from that of the weathered elder, the ancient aura surrounding them was no less profound than that of the Grand Elder. Elder of Heavenly Punishment. He Yuanyun's pupils contracted slightly at the sight of the figure. He had not expected that along with the arrival of the Grand Elder, this pivotal figure from within the clan had also descended. Wu Wanlong and his companions were even more astonished. Two ancient beings, who had lived for over 10,000 years, had appeared simultaneously, and the strength of the latter was evidently no less than the former, reaching infinitely close to the late stage of the heavenly supreme level. Let it go. Currently, the bloodlines across the primordial divine clan are facing shortages. Disciples with exceptional bloodlines are extremely precious. However, as for Tongdan's intent to target the primordial divine vein, I see no need to pursue it further. After all, such a divine vein of heaven and earth is not reserved for any single individual. It is a resource for the capable, the Elder of Heavenly Punishment stated calmly. Could it be that the Elder of Heavenly Punishment is suggesting that, since my side has already acquired 90% of the primordial divine vein, the remaining 10% should be handed over to your side as charity? The weathered elder responded with a faint smile. Heh. While the primordial divine vein is extraordinarily precious, it is not the only path to the peak. My side has our own methods to contend with yours. We do not need your primordial divine vein, the Elder of Heavenly Punishment replied with a light laugh. With a wave of his sleeve, the world-binding suppression that had enveloped the area shattered instantly. Tongdan, who had been trapped within it, was also freed. At the same time, the suppression around Yin Yao and Xiao Yin dissipated. However, the colossal gray fire dragon, which had been aiming to pierce through the unconscious Xiao Yin, continued its charge. But as it neared within 100 meters of Xiao Yin, a spatial fracture descended, forcibly dissipating the fire dragon. Heh, such an aura. Could it be a lower dimension cultivator who has broken through their shackles? To have reached the early stage of Earth Supreme at this age is remarkable. A distant figure murmured with a faint smile after dispelling the fire dragon's assault on Xiao Yin. But soon, his expression changed slightly as he sensed something. After the fire dragon was dissolved, its residual flame of fire power seemed to be drawn by some mysterious force, streaming in threads toward the unconscious Xiao Yan's body. This aura. Isn't this the flame scripture of the Fire Spirit clan? The Grand Elder's voice spread through the heavens, stunning everyone. Even the Elder of Heavenly Punishment showed a rare flicker of doubt in his gaze. Wu Wanlong and Xia Tianqing were visibly shaken as they looked toward Xiao Yin. The perception of a near late-stage, heavenly supreme heaven-reaching expert was unlikely to be wrong. Yet, according to Wu Wanlong's understanding, Xiao Yin had only broken through the shackles of the lower dimension and entered the Great Thousand Worlds a little over a year ago. How could he be connected to a mighty ancient clan like the Fire Spirit clan? Moreover, the so-called flame scripture was the clan's treasured technique. How could such a thing be tied to Xiao Yin? Could it be related to the world-ending battle of 10,000 years ago? The Grand Elder muttered, looking at Xiao Yin with a trace of suspicion. That catastrophic war, which erupted tens of thousands of years ago between the Outer World Evil Clan and the Great Thousand Worlds, was immense in scale, engulfing not only the Great Thousand Worlds but countless lower dimensions as well. Due to the war, countless supreme divine techniques, arts, and even artifacts and techniques had flowed into the lower dimensions. Could it be that the Fire Spirit Clan's treasured flame scripture had also been lost to the lower dimension during that battle? This is truly interesting. The Grand Elder smiled faintly and waved his sleeve. An invisible, profoundly mysterious power pierced through the void and entered Xiao Yan's body. Under this aura, the extreme weakness that plagued Xiao Yan began recovering at an astonishing speed. However, due to his exhaustion, it seemed he would remain unconscious for a while longer. After helping Xiao Yan restore his internal strength, the Grand Elder turned his gaze toward Elder of Heavenly Punishment in the distance. At the same time, Tong Dan, who had broken free from the shackles of the heavens and earth, swiftly approached Elder of Heavenly Punishment, seemingly whispering something. Not long after, the weakened Yin Yao also flew toward him. At this moment, Elder of Heavenly Punishment was undoubtedly their strongest support. Elder of Heavenly Punishment, how do you think we should resolve the current situation? The Grand Elder asked calmly, his eyes fixed on him. This is a tricky matter, Elder of Heavenly Punishment replied with a faint smile. Upon hearing this, Mu Hengtian and Zhuang Yuanzi, standing at a distance, felt a glimmer of hope. It appeared that the Elder of Heavenly Punishment from the ancient heaven-reaching Python clan was inclined to side with them. However, his next words caused their hearts to sink. But after hearing Tong Dan's account, it's clear that they were the first to make a move. Zhuang Yuanzi, in particular, intended to seize the primordial divine vein. So, does that mean I have the authority to deal with the two of them? The Grand Elder's gaze shifted toward Mu Hengtian and Zhuang Yuanzi. I cannot argue with that, Elder of Heavenly Punishment replied. However, with the extraterritorial evil tribes eyeing the Great Thousand Worlds, losing two heavenly supremes would not be in our best interest. I understand, the Grand Elder responded. Hearing this, Elder of Heavenly Punishment turned to Mu Hengtian and Zhuang Yuanzi. You dared covet the divine vein of my clan, a crime punishable by death. However, given the scarcity of heavenly supremes in the current world, I believe the Grand Elder won't press you too hard. Consider this your last warning. Mu Hengtian and Zhuang Yuanzi trembled. Coveting the rare primordial divine vein was a grave taboo. Despite their heavenly supreme status, they were no match for the immense power of the primordial divine clan. Even ancient sects like the Heaven and Earth Gate and the Divine Void Palace could be eradicated by the heaven-reaching Python clan. Fortunately, Elder of Heavenly Punishment's words suggested that they might not face severe consequences. You two. No, your two factions hold considerable influence in the Great Thousand Worlds. If each of you handles a task for me, I will let this matter drop, the Grand Elder said with a slight smile. Realizing the Grand Elder only required them to complete a task, without targeting their sects directly, Mu Hengtian and Zhuang Yuanzi breathed a sigh of relief. They believed the task would be within their capabilities. The Grand Elder's generosity is a great boon to the Divine Void Palace, Zhuang Yuanzi said respectfully. He had no desire to provoke any faction within the primordial divine clan. Though he had indeed sought the primordial divine vein from He Yuanyun's body, this task offered him a chance at redemption, a rare fortune. Mu Hengtian, however, glanced at Zhuang Yuanzi in frustration. He had only acted on Tong Dan's orders, yet now he had to face the consequences alongside Zhuang Yuanzi. Still, he understood the sheer might of the primordial divine clan. Resisting was not an option, so he resigned himself to hearing what task the Grand Elder would assign. The lower dimension is now divided into 800 realms, each containing nearly 1,000 lower planes. In terms of size, these realms are no smaller than the so-called supercontinents, the Grand Elder explained with a sigh. Yet, many lower planes are now under attack by the extraterritorial evil tribes. Despite the Alliance's counteroffensive efforts, they've only managed to reach a stalemate. If the lower plane's defenses fall, we'll be facing the Second Calamity War. Upon hearing this, Mu Hengtian and Zhuang Yuanzi exchanged a glance. They were well aware of the significant threat the extraterritorial evil race posed to the Great Thousand Worlds. As major powers within this realm, they were not ignorant of this danger. In the past, some of their sect's former leaders had intended to assist the lower dimension. However, such endeavors were ultimately abandoned due to the lack of any tangible benefit. It was purely a selfless undertaking. Furthermore, engaging in combat with the extraterritorial evil race inevitably led to casualties, representing a loss for both the ancient Heaven sect and the Divine Void Palace. This was not something they were willing to do. According to Yuan Cheng's theory of reality and illusion, there is likely a shadow dimension cluster connected to the central heaven continent in the lower dimension, comprising thousands of dimensions. It's uncertain whether the extraterritorial evil race has invaded these areas, but there might even be some super dimensions among them, the Grand Elder explained. Yuan Cheng, whom he mentioned, hailed from the lower dimension. Although his talent in cultivation was mediocre, he possessed exceptional theoretical expertise. Yuan Cheng was now affiliated with the Great Thousand Alliance, one of the 7 major lower dimension coalitions in the Great Thousand Worlds. The Grand Elder continued, "What I need you to do is venture into this dimensional cluster. If you find any extraterritorial evil race members, eliminate them all. Should you encounter a dimension that has been completely overtaken, you are not to show mercy to its inhabitants. Destroy the entire dimension outright. Such a task shouldn't be too challenging for 2 heavenly supremes, right?" the Grand Elder asked, his gaze fixed on Mu Hengtian and Zhuang Yuanzi. "No," Zhuang Yuanzi replied. Mu Hengtian also nodded. The task given by the Grand Elder was essentially akin to patrolling the lower dimension. For those living in the lower dimension, the invaders from the extraterritorial evil race were terrifying, but the arrival of a heavenly supreme would be an absolute nightmare for the invaders. Even if they managed to seize control of a dimension, a heavenly supreme could obliterate the entire dimension, including its dimensional core, with ease. In the distance, Elder of Heavenly Punishment chuckled. The Grand Elder indeed had some clever tactics. By sending 2 heavenly supremes to clear the extraterritorial evil race from the dimensional cluster, he not only conserved the strength of the Great Thousand Worlds, but also launched a counterattack against their enemies. "Since this is the Grand Elder's decision, there's no need for us to linger here," said the Elder of Heavenly Punishment. With a respectful gesture toward the Grand Elder, he disappeared across the sky, covering tens of thousands of miles in an instant. Following him, Tong Dan and Yin Yao cast a glance at He Yuan Yun in the distance before swiftly departing as well. "Thank you, Grand Elder, for everything today," He Yuan Yun expressed with a bow as he watched the Elder of Heavenly Punishment leave. "You little rascal, I'll settle accounts with you when you return to the clan," the Grand Elder replied, rapping He Yuan Yun on the head like an elder admonishing a younger generation. Then, turning his gaze toward Wu Wanlong and Xia Tianqing not far away, the Grand Elder spoke again. "Today, our clan's holy son emerged and scathed thanks to you too. I, this old man, will not forget it," he said. "Grand Elder, you overpraise us. The Holy Son's divine vein could determine the stability of the Great Thousand Worlds. What we did was only our duty," Xia Tianqing replied with a slight bow. "Very well then. There are matters in the clan that require my attention, so I cannot stay here much longer. Take these 2 scrolls of divine heaven art as a token of gratitude," the Grand Elder said. With a wave of his sleeve, 2 thin red scrolls emanating a faint radiance flew toward Wu Wanlong and Xia Tianqing. Wu Wanlong and Xia Tianqing hurriedly caught them. Although the divine heaven art was not essential for a heavenly supreme, it was an invaluable treasure for Earth Supremes within their sect. With the divine heaven art, an Earth Supreme would become nearly invincible among their peers. "Thank you, Grand Elder, for your generosity," Wu Wanlong said, bowing as he received the scrolls. "Oh, right," the Grand Elder suddenly remembered something, turning his gaze toward Xiao Yin. A small black jade slip, only a few inches in size, appeared in his hand. Looking at Wu Wanlong, he said, You're also a powerful figure from the lower dimension, aren't you? I come from a high-level dimension called the Taihuan Realm, Wu Wanlong replied. A high-level dimension? That's truly a miracle. A heavenly supreme emerging from such a place. The Grand Elder remarked, flicking the black jade slip toward Wu Wanlong. When this young man awakens, give this to him. Wu Wanlong caught the black jade slip that was tossed to him. Although he had no idea what it contained, he figured it must not be something ordinary, perhaps even something of great significance to Xiao Yin. By the way, I just remembered there's something I need you to pass on to someone, He Yuanyan suddenly said. A 9-colored jade slip appeared in his hand, which he then tossed to Xiao. Please deliver this to Miss Kailin. It will certainly be of use to her. Miss Kailin? A woman? Kid, what are you scheming again? The Grand Elder beside them questioned suspiciously. However, He Yuanyan didn't elaborate on who Kailin was. Xia Tianqing accepted the 9-colored jade slip He Yuanyan handed over and agreed to fulfill his request. There are matters within the clan that require my attention, so I'll take my leave now. The Grand Elder gave a final glance at the unconscious Xiao Yin below, then smiled slightly. A profound and mysterious fluctuation enveloped him and He Yuanyan, and in an instant, the two vanished from the heavens and earth. Silence returned to the world, leaving only two figures standing high in the sky. Wu Wanlong and Xia Tianqing exchanged glances before turning their attention to Xiao Yin below. To think this kid could use external conditions to break through to the Earth Supreme stage during a battle. That's simply terrifying, Wu Wanlong remarked. In the Great Thousand Worlds, the Earth Supreme level represented the pinnacle of strength. Its rarity stemmed from the extreme difficulty of achieving it. Even the most talented geniuses approached the breakthrough with the utmost caution, as even the slightest misstep could result in death or severe injury. Yet Xiao Yin had managed to achieve it mid-battle by leveraging multiple factors. Even heavenly supreme experts like Wu Wanlong and Xia Tianqing had never heard of such a feat. Afterward, Wu Wanlong and Xia Tianqing brought Xiao Yin back to the Grand Myriad Heavenly Palace. However, due to the summons of the Palace Master of the Western Heaven Palace, Wu Wanlong departed with other experts from the Western Heaven Palace after ensuring Xiao Yan's safe arrival in the Myriad Heavenly Domain. Before leaving, like the Grand Elder of the ancient heaven-reaching Python clan, he left Xiao Yin with a jade slip. When Kailin saw Xiao Yin return with injuries, she was deeply concerned. Previously, due to her limited strength, she hadn't been able to accompany him on his missions and had stayed at the Grand Myriad Heavenly Palace, waiting for his return. During this time, through Xia Tianqing, she received the 9-colored jade slip left for her by He Yuanyan. Over the next several days, while Xiao Yin remained unconscious due to the aftereffects of burning his Flame Emperor body for the second time, Kailin began studying the 9-colored jade slip,